Well, thanks a
Thanks.
million.
Really fun.
It was.
Wait, no. Wait. I want to hear about. So, what are you doing about all your mold stuff?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is just I'm upping my my vitamin, the B12 and the D, which I think is going to help a lot. And the other thing is, I'm not a big fan of AC. So when we first got down here, I was kind of keeping the AC off, and I think that probably contributed part of the problem. So so I did that. There could have been some mold in this area underneath our sink, and it's funny you mentioned a dishwasher leak because there's some wood that was rotten underneath the sink in the kitchen. It was like this little area which I cleaned out, and there could have easily been mold in there. It didn't look crazy when I cleaned it out, but I did clean that out, so that hopefully that helped. So I don't know. I'm going to mainly try. I'm thinking. I tell you, I'm thinking this is more an immunity issue because I think there's something hidden behind this fact that a lot of people can live in a moldy house and some people can't. There's something there to be learned. I don't know what it is. I was reading this. I'm kind of interested lately in why people are vegan for a while and then stop being vegan. Because I see on some of these chat rooms and stuff and like paleo blogs, there are people who are vegan for a while and they run into problems and then they go back. And then they become like really like adamantly anti-vegan, you know? And I want to figure out what's going on there and address it and kind of knock it out, you know? But I think there's some truths there that some of these people experience that can probably be alleviated in a vegan way. But I want to fully understand what's going on. Like, there's this one thing I read yesterday. The girl was like vegan for like 3.5 years and like a serious vegan and a very outspoken vegan who was promoting it for all the reasons that we, you know, think are important. But her health reached a point where doctors were like saying, you've got to do something different. And so basically in tears, she starts eating animal products. You know, she's crying because she's so torn about it. But after she starts eating meat, she started feeling great within like a couple of days. So I think it's like what you said. It was probably a deficiency issue. You know, she started taking B12, and that immediately she saw benefits. I mean, that alone could have been her problem. But I mean, she sounded like an intelligent person who said she had tried everything. You know, and she had it sounded like there could have been too much fat in her diet, but I don't know. I mean, so I think there are people like that. You know, there are people like that. I want to know what that's about.
And I think it seems like in the vegan world, or at least the raw vegan world, there's like this so anti-supplement, whereas in the meat-eating world, I don't know, it's not a big deal. People take supplements. They take multivitamins, you know?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who try it are just like, oh, well, then I don't use supplements. I'm vegan. Or, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's vegan things, but still, maybe it's just the raw vegans that are just crazy about
being
the
like
fruit
totally...
raw vegans, because a lot of raw vegans use a lot of supplements.
Yeah. I think it's common, kind of what you experience. You start out thinking, oh, I'll just be totally natural, because that's what I did. It's like, what a great thing. I can do everything from food, and I don't have to pay for these things that are artificial and are perhaps being introduced into the body in an unbalanced way because it's not part of a natural food. You know, there's a lot of arguments that make it sound reasonable not to supplement, but then you start getting sick, you know. So, and then you have to think. I mean, of course, conventional eaters, there's a lot of illness rampant in conventional eaters, but there's also a good bit of funkiness within, I think, the raw movement in terms of people trying to make it right, make it work. You know, it seems like it takes a hell of a long time to get it right, and it seems like there's a very few who really can do it. So what's that about? Why is that the case, you know? Don't you think that's a little weird?
I think well, my experience was that I never had to work at this stuff when I was eating my crappy STAD diet. I mean,
Yeah.
never had to. But I was eating, looking back at it now, I was eating a lot of probiotics because I was binging on yogurt. I was getting a lot of B12 because I was binging on cereal. I was getting a lot of D because I would use milk, fortified milk on my cereal. I mean, I think that I never had to work at it because I was eating a lot of calories of junk that was fortified.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting that you call it junk. I mean, like what kind of yogurt? Like a Greek yogurt, or
I mean, no, I mean any kind.
But I
Gin
mean,
and yogurt, fruit on the bottom, mix it up, cherry.
but binging compared to, I mean, that's not like eating Ben and Jerry's.
Well, I binged on the crap food too. I just meant those were some of the things I binged on. Yes,
Okay.
was the healthier stuff.
Yeah. Anyway.
But as far as the people living in mold and not having health problems, I think that they still do get health problems. They just don't know it's from the mold.
Okay.
I mean, who do you know that doesn't have health problems?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, like, everybody I know has health problems. They're just live with it, or they just say, oh, it's something that's in my genes or whatever. I think people who live in mold get health problems. Even, from what I've heard, even low levels of mold over a long period of time is going to cause health problems. And I mean, there's different kinds of mold too, though. There's toxic mold, and then not all mold is created the same. So,
do you think a lot of these people who have popular YouTube channels and present the way that they're eating as something that's brought them tremendous health, do you think they're being completely honest about their state of health? Do you think some of them have issues that they're not talking about, or do you think there are some people that really are totally vibrant, healthy, no problems?
I don't know. I was reading when I was really struggling with my health stuff. I was doing a lot of reading, and I read this one that was by a guy who'd been in the raw vegan world for a while, and he was talking about all these presenters that he knew were presenting at like these raw vegan festivals, and how they're talking about do this, it's great, blah blah blah, and then he knew personally of their issues, and they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like he said, so many of them were dealing with anxiety. It was a huge issue. But there were other things, and he's like, they just didn't say, they didn't talk about it. But there are people, I mean, like Tim Van Orden. That was really interesting having him here, because he does talk about his issues. And
oh, he did. That's good. Good for him.
Yeah, he talks about depression, and then people are like, oh, well, we don't want to hear from a depressed person. Obviously, something's not right for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's got a lot of teeth problems, and he says it's from before. He had bad teeth before, but he's also, doesn't really care for a whole lot of supplementation, and so he's, Don Bennett is like, people get teeth problems for various, like if D is low, and different minerals, if we don't have mineral-rich saliva, because that's how our teeth are mineralized at night.
Yeah.
Various things with that. So even if you have like great dental care, you can still get problems. But yeah, Alicia Grant, do you know her? Raw Synergy TV?
I've probably come across her, but
I was talking with her yesterday, because she's had her share of things to work through, and she's been talking about it, and I really appreciate that. She's been talking about her gut problems, and she had parasites, and we were just kind of talking about this stomach acid thing, and she's like, it seems like there's a lot of people who have been, people talk about bloating, and And she said that taking the apple cider vinegar really helped her with that. And Victoria Arnstein was saying how much like probiotics and something else really helped her with some of her gut issues. So there are people that are talking about stuff. And like when I first crashed, and there were some girls who visited me that had been around the fruit-based stuff for a while, and one of them had done a lot of traveling. So she stayed with a lot of in Australia. She stayed with a lot of people in Australia, and she'd been to a lot of the fruit festivals, and she was saying, you know, these people have been doing it for a long time, do not look good. Like, and she's like, especially the fruitarians, the strict fruitarians, they look terrible. She's like, there's only a few people that actually look good. She's like, Don Bennett, Robert Lockhart looks good. She was saying he includes some other stuff. I can't remember what he includes, but it was really interesting to hear her perspective because she's been around a lot of people who have been, you know, doing it for a while. And so we may, you know, I think it's easy to kind of, like, for instance, Don had mold in his RV, and so he's having some nose issues since the mold thing, and so he's been doing the nasal sprays, but he's like in such good health that it's not a huge issue like it is for me, who I'm not in good health.
Yeah.
And I think that it could be easy to say, oh, it's just a little annoyance, and not understand that a little annoyance now, you know, could grow. Like if it's from some kind of insufficiency at the moment, you know, insufficiencies over a long period of time cause problems or.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, the way you talked about it, it kind of gives the impression that the mold, it can kind of grow inside the body. And if it's more prevalent in your environment, it'll grow more. And if you live a certain way, it'll grow more. It might kind of grow and subside, but never totally go away. It's kind of like candida, you know. Candida can be like that. Because of course candida is mold, isn't it? So yeah. But
the doctor was telling us that the mold lives in the sinus cavities that are dark and wet and warm, and you know, which makes me think, is that why I had so much mucus like while we were living there? I mean, I don't know how it all works, but it's been interesting since we started taking the nose spray. We get so much mucus and things are clogged up again. So I guess I don't know if it's die off or what.
Yeah, interesting. I saw in association with this vitamin D in terms of promoting the immune system against mold had something to do with protein synthesis, which also put up a flag for me in that most of us high carbers are not really that concerned about protein, and also you're supplementing with, I don't know if it's amino acids or protein, I think, aren't you? So and I think maybe a lot of people are, because the reason I asked you about this raw meal thing, I just interviewed this gal. She's over in Orlando, real sweet lady. But she eats this raw meal stuff, and I think it's got protein and other things in it. You know, it's kind of like a Don Bennett approach. Probably a product Don Bennett would not recommend, but she's very happy with it, and it probably supplies with a lot of the nutrients that Don Bennett talks about. You know what I mean? So I don't know what I'm saying, but
you said something at the beginning of that, and I'm like, hold that thought, Tasha. Hold that thought. Oh, the protein synthesis. That was the way that the mold attacks the gut that I couldn't think of while you're talking to me. But yeah, it interferes with mold synthesis. It attacks the gut flora, and it interferes with the production of stomach acid. The mold does all these things. So yeah, even though I was taking more and more amino acids, my body was not, I mean, I couldn't, it was like it was harder. I had to get more and more and more in order to not get the symptoms of amino acid deficiency. And then it was like totally burning my body, all this stuff that it had to work to digest.
Now, you know what you're reminding me of here is someone mentioned this recently that, it was Dr. Klapper. You know Dr. Klapper? I watched one of his talks. He's really cool. And he makes the point that whatever you're eating over a long period of time, the body develops this kind of ecosystem within the gut, depending on what it is. And I wonder if, those of us that focus primarily on carbs, do we kind of get this internal ecosystem down to where it's not really accustomed to breaking down protein, and that it would take keeping it constantly introduced to get the flora necessary. It's like it takes time for the flora to evolve to where it can handle a particular type of incoming food. So it's like if somebody's eating a SAD diet, they have an ecosystem that's evolved to address that. Of course, there's a lot of unhealthy consequences, but nevertheless, they have the right microbiological environment for that diet. And maybe one of the things we get in our group is a lot of us are changing a lot of things. We're always trying to add something new, taking something out, and maybe it's not as consistent, or I don't know. But something worth considering.
Yeah. What were you saying? What was Mercola saying about D and protein synthesis with regard to mold?
Well, somehow a D deficiency reduces the body's ability, or it inhibits the body's ability to, I guess, break down or use protein properly. It had something to do with protein assimilation. Somehow vitamin D is related to protein assimilation. So if D is really low, you're probably not getting enough protein. Your body's not able to. But it's not really. It's really amino acids, isn't it? Because the body breaks it down into amino. So maybe it's that action itself. Maybe it's D facilitates the transition of protein into usable amino acids for the body, something like that. But it also made me think, if that's true, then perhaps protein, just accessible protein, is also a factor in this mold issue. Because if introducing D means there's more protein, then that's a plus. But let's say you introduce more D, but you're low in protein generally anyway. You're not getting it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so you may need both. If you're a person who typically has a low protein, but I mean, I know that's a stretch because I pretty much believe McDougall and Barnard and all these folks when they say, it's basically unhealthy. Excessive protein is basically, it leads to problems. It's part of the problem. It's not part of the solution, generally speaking. But maybe I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's as a diabetic, eating all this protein powder has been horrible for my blood sugars. But I don't know what else to do.
And it digests horribly, doesn't it? It's impossible to digest, isn't it?
It's very, yeah. And my blood sugars have been just so hard to manage with so much protein in my system that's not getting broken down. So it's been so much better since I cut out the protein powder because I was obviously not digesting it and was killing me. Elimination wise.
Yeah.
But then when I started to add it back in, I was doing it with like enzymes and hydrochloric acid, things to help break it down, and it's been so much better.
Interesting.
I got low in vitamin D too through all this mold stuff. I mean, really a lot lower. My levels dropped so quickly, but they've gone up a lot faster since doing a lot of D.
Okay. It's complicated. Have you ever tried something like Bragg's amino acids?
Have I tried it? Oh, yes. Yes?
So you didn't like them?
Oh, no, I loved it. I had such a hard time getting rid of that stuff.
Oh, well, maybe it's healthy. What's unhealthy about it?
I think my problem with it was that it was soy based, and so I'd get all this mucus stuff from the soy.
Okay.
Yeah, and
But
other
that's
people
interesting
said,
that you really
it's
loved
an
it.
excitotoxin. Don't eat it. It's an excitotoxin.
Who said that, Dawn?
No, I mean all the people on 30 Bananas a Day back when I was loving it.
But it's interesting that you really loved it because maybe your body was like getting something from it, you know?
I loved the saltiness of it. That's what I loved.
Yeah, yeah.
I would put that on cabbage, and I'm like, it's like eating an egg roll. Yeah, I've used it from time to time. We've kept it around, but I just try to not use it a lot.
Gotcha. But I wonder if it's a good source of amino acids. Does it supposedly have all the amino acids in it?
I don't know. I hadn't heard about that. Like, I've been doing aloe vera for amino acids, and then there's this green powder called, no, apparently the juice barley grass powder has all the essential amino acids, which I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Those two for amino acids, and then what else? Oh, the hemp. Hemp itself has all the essential amino acids.
Okay. Well, you'd think then you wouldn't need to take protein powder if you're taking all that.
Yeah, you would think. If my body would absorb the stuff and use it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Don doesn't use protein powder. He just eats, chia for the fatty acids and hemp for the amino acids and the juice barley grass powder. But yeah, Seth and I both have felt such an improvement by getting the extra protein, and probably because our bodies weren't absorbing it, weren't breaking it down, whatever.
Okay, gotcha.
To get more protein without more fat, because if you eat the hemp, you obviously get fat too, and
right.
That would cause problems, but all the protein caused problems.
All right.